this is Flip with Lawn Mastery. Today we're going to start a multi-part series on lawn fertilizers. Today in part one we're going to talk about what's in a fertilizer bag, what do those elements or those components do for your yard, and we're also going to talk about how to read the label on a fertilizer bag. In part two we're going to talk about how to determine the right amount of fertilizer to put on your lawn. And in part three, we're going to talk about how to evaluate the different formulations of fertilizer so that you can make a best buy decision based on dollars and cents for the fertilizer that you buy. In part four, we're going to talk about how to dial in your spreader so that you get the right application rate for the fertilizer that you use. So today, we're going to keep it at a very high level, and this is a relatively short part, but it's going to get a little geeky. In fact, I put on my reading glasses today just to give me a little bit of street cred for being a geek. Now, if you're one of those that really glossed over a little bit in math and science class in school, this may get a little too cerebral for you, and in fact, you may get bored fairly quickly. If that's the case, I certainly understand. And if that's the case, just skip this, go to part two, and that'll make more sense for you. But if you do have a little bit of a geek streak in you, grab your geek glasses, put them on, and let's get started. First thing you need to know is that for effective plant growth, there are 12 micronutrients and 6 macronutrients required. We're not even going to talk about any of the micronutrients today. In fact, we're only going to talk about 3 of the macronutrients. The reason why we're only talking about the big three, is because those are the ones that are required in the largest concentrations for effective plant growth. The second reason is the fertilizer industry basically sets the measuring stick based on these 3 components, these 3 macronutrients. The nutrients we're going to talk about today are nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So nitrogen, what does that do for your lawn? Well, nitrogen gives it that big, bold green color, and it makes your grass grow really fast. That's what it is. So when you're thinking about, I'm going to buy some fertilizer, I'm going to put it on my yard because I want a big, green, colorful lawn, that's what you're thinking about. You're thinking about nitrogen. Now, on the other hand, phosphorus establishes really strong and fast root growth. So it sets a really strong foundation underneath the green grass that you see on the surface. And because of that strong foundation, that phosphorus really helps with disease control, and it fights the disease. Potassium, think of potassium as a toughener. It helps with drought resistance, also helps with cold hardiness. A lot of times when you see a bag of fertilizer that's considered or labeled a winterizer for your lawn, it's got a really high value of the potassium, so it'll help that grass get through those cold winter months. So these are the NPK values that you see on every fertilizer bag. Now, these fertilizer values are represented in a format that looks like this, NPK, and what those represent, they're always in this order. Nitrogen is always the first value presented, phosphorus is always the second value presented, and potassium is always the third value. And what those values mean, they're numerical values, and what they mean is that's the percentage by weight of that nutrient in that bag of fertilizer. It doesn't matter what size the bag of fertilizer is, but it's the percentage by weight of that nutrient. So in this example, we have a 16-4-8 formulation. That tells us that 16% of that bag is made up of nitrogen, 4% is made up of phosphorus, and 8% is made up of potassium. Now, even if you did gloss over in math class, you know that this doesn't add up to 100%. So where's the balance of the percentage to get to 100? Well, mostly it's in inert ingredients. When they make fertilizer, they place these nutrients on what's called a substrate. In most cases, in granular fertilizer, that substrate is like a gypsum rock. And they grind that down into little small pellets. They apply these nutrients on the surface of those pellets. So when you cast them out in the yard and you water or it rains, these nutrients get washed off into the soil. So that's what happens. And then the gypsum rock, when it's all washed away, eventually they break down into the soil too. Now on a bag of fertilizer, if you see a bag and it's got all 3 numbers here that are positive values like this one, that's considered to be a complete fertilizer because it has all 3 of those 3 major components included in the bag. If you see a bag that only has 1 or 2 positive values, of these nutrients, that's considered to be an incomplete fertilizer, meaning that one of these nutrients are not included in the bag, has a 0 value. A fertilizer bag that has an equal part or equal amount of all 3 of those components is a balanced fertilizer. In this particular example, it's 10-10-10, meaning we have equal parts, 10% by weight, of nitrogen, phosphorus, as well as potassium. So that's basically it. I mean, that was pretty simple, right? In summary, when you think of fertilizer, think of the 3 macro ingredients or the macronutrients this way. Nitrogen makes your grass green. Phosphorus makes your grass healthy. And potassium makes your grass tough. I hope this clears up some of the confusion. Hopefully this helped. Check us out at lawnmastery.com. It's a new website. There's not a lot of content there, but we're adding more every week. Also, like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Hope to see you again in part 2.